You're traveling to another dimension, unlike any other before. A dimension of sight and sound. Something that you might remember back in the old days when they used to show it in the Sci Fi Channel. An old series known as, well, a TV show that might give you a little draw back to memory lane. Some of you might know it, and some of you may not even watch it because you like to prefer watch something else. But one thing I'm trying to get you into is a show I grew up watching ever since I was young, and it's The Twilight Zone. Well, what can you say about The Twilight Zone? Actually, what can you say about The Twilight Zone? Many of us has grown up with The Twilight Zone. We always watch it every single time. And everybody always remembered Rod Serling, the one I'm doing an imitation of. Rod Serling always wrote his stories for The Twilight Zone, and now I, multi-voice reviewer, am doing my impression of Rod Serling for this review, The Twilight Zone. As you can see, The Twilight Zone is not like any other show ever seen in history. And of course I have myself a complete series of The Twilight Zone. All 156 episodes. And it was on 5 seasons, made back in 1959, all the way to 1964. And this was something I cherish. Ever since I found it in Walmart, I have to say, this DVD collection of The Twilight Zone is worth the money. And worth of me doing this review for you folks who do remember The Twilight Zone. Every episode is a little draw back to memory lane. Some of you remembered one show. Some of you remember this show. One show called The Doll. You know, the one about the doll, it goes like,
I'm talking Tina and I don't like you. I'm talking Tina and I'm going to kill you.
That's right. That show, that episode was the inspiration for Chucky the Killer Doll from the movies you probably remembered, Child's Play. And also, there was also Eye of the Beholder, starring that lovely actress who goes by the name of who played Ellie Mae Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies, and now, on Eye of the Beholder, she plays a girl who is horribly disformed, that she had plastic surgery, and as the plastic surgery was done, and she was absolutely beautiful, but sadly, all the people who helped her was absolutely deformed. I mean, they all looked like pig nose, you know, like this. But I rest. And the best episode ever made that Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer do like, called The Mask. The Mask was an episode where there was an old man who is almost dying, and his family want to get his wealth. That's why they were being nice to him, but he knows they are a bunch of blood-sucking fiends. Kind of reminds Multi-Voice Reviewers' relatives. Anyway, he decided to celebrate Mardi Gras by letting them all wear a mask. And these are masks of people how he remembers them, being snooty, pig-like, and evil and mean. And he himself is wearing a skeleton mask. And after he died, his face still looks the same. But as for his relatives, as they took off their mask, they look completely horrified. Sounds like something that Mr. Multivoice Reviewer would like to do for his relatives. But the show is all science fiction and some supernatural things happening. And it was all created by the legendary Rod Serling himself. The one I'm doing my impression of. And also other stories based by H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, and do not forget the legendary story writer Ray Bradbury. He wrote tons of his books, and they asked permission to have some of his stories be on the Twilight Zone. And also, a lot of stars was in it. Burgess Meredith. Well, let's see on the back. William Shatner, before he became Captain James D. Kirk. Leonard Nimoy, before he becomes Spock. Art Kearney. Dennis Hopper. And among others. There were tons of actors in this show, I'll tell you that. And of course, there was one show called The Invasion. In that show, you see an old lady living in her house, and all of a sudden she keeps getting attacked by a miniature toy robot. Well, toy-looking robot, to be precise. And sadly, she finally defeated the robot and found a ship where that robot came from. But as she hits the ship, she hears voices inside, and it says it was from the USS Planet Earth. So it turns out that that woman is the alien, and, that astronaut trying to kill the woman was an astronaut from our planet. What a twist. That show has a lot of plot twists and turns at the end of the show. And after the end of the show of Twilight Zone, Rod Serling returned. Of course, he didn't get much credit on this show, but he did host it. And he hosts this show, The Night Gallery. Hey, who is this handsome devil? Unlike the Twilight Zone, the Night Gallery, he is like the curator in an art gallery, except this Night Gallery is unlike any other before. It has pictures and statues, and each one tells stories. Now, Mr. Multivoice Reviewer, who loves the Night Gallery, his #1 favorite episode on the Night Gallery was, of course, The Devil Does Not Mock. And that was an episode where what happens if Nazi Germany march all the way to Romania. And there are 2 reasons why Mr. Multivoice Reviewer loves The Devil Does Not Mock. Because 2 reasons. 1, he hates Nazis, but 2, loves vampires. And when they get to the scene where the vampires were killing all the Nazis, that is something Mr. Multivoice Reviewer giggled about. He loves seeing the Third Reich getting killed one by one by werewolves and vampires. Something that he enjoyed watching. And he loves that movie to the end of his day. He loves that episode to the end of his days. But at the end of Night Gallery, there was somebody decided, back in 1983, they decided to make a movie of the Twilight Zone. And sadly, Rod Serling passed away. But Burgess Meredith himself, who's been in all the episodes of the Twilight Zone, decided to host the movie. But sadly, that one actor who's supposed to be playing the racist sadly died during filming. that's bad luck. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, you should watch the extra of it, and they get to that scene how he died while shooting. Along with some Vietnamese actors who died along with him while the helicopter dropped on top of them. And then back in 1985, the same year that Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer was born, they decided to do a new series of The Twilight Zone back in the 80s. But they only made about 3 seasons of that show. It started in 1985 and ended in 1989. And then Walt Disney, who seems to love the Twilight Zone, decided to make a theme park based from the Twilight Zone. And the Twilight Zone was called the Twilight Zone Terror of Tower. Supposed to be a legend about 3 people, a famous little child star, an old lady, a bellboy, and a famous celebrity and his girlfriend. Get inside the elevator, but something happened. The lightning struck on the elevator, and it went down, and they vanish. And that was the most memorable ride in history, the Terror Tower. And they made a movie of it. But instead of calling it Twilight Zone Terror Tower, they just call it Disney's Terror of Tower. In greats. Starring Steve Guttenberg and Kirsten Dunst. Too bad they didn't use a theme song of the Twilight Zone. And now I hear that since the movie called Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 is coming to theaters, they have decided to turn the Tower of Terror into a Guardians of the Galaxy ride called the Collector Tower. You know, Benicio del Toro's character, the Collector. But that's just a rumor, and I'm not sure if it's going to be true or not. And surprisingly, back in 2002, they decided to make a brand new series of The Twilight Zone, but sadly it lasted in one season. It started in 2002 and sadly ended in 2003. So I guess The Twilight Zone... Nobody cannot continue on making the new Twilight Zone because the classic himself will go on forever. And the show itself will be in our memories and in our DVD or Blu-ray boxes. Now, of course, Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer got this at Walmart, and he has to say it's worth the money to enjoy the entire show, even though it's in black and white. But you need to get used to the black and white, because Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer don't care if it's in black and white or not. It's still memorable. Just like all the other anthology series that Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer love enjoying watching. Besides The Twilight Zone, he grew up watching this series, Tales of the Dark Side. Very creepy. And, of course, Tales from the Crypt.
That's right, kitties. Oh, it's the first time I'm in black and white. But that is true. Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer enjoyed watching Tales from the Crypt.
What happened? Probably nothing. Anyway, that's right. Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer enjoyed watching Tales from the Crypt. And I know some of you are complaining. I'm Rod Sterling. I always smoke. Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer don't smoke, but Rod Sterling does. So for those of you who have problems with me smoking or the black and white of my show, why don't you just grow up and enjoy the classics? So for those of you who enjoy listening to Rod Sterling reminiscent about the Twilight Zone, please leave a comment down below, hit like, and subscribe. And you can share it on Facebook. For those people who did remember watching the Twilight Zone and enjoy the classic twisted tales of the anthology. Now, as for me, I, Rod Sterling, will be leaving soon, and Mr. Multi-Voice Reviewer will return for some more reviews. So, see you soon.